Good evening, everybody. Scott Stevens here. It looks like we made it to Friday. We finally got to almost the end of the week, but for some, probably a payday Friday since it is the last Friday of the month. June 1 beginning Monday as we head on back to work. A lot happening across the states, mostly the states this time. I didn't see a whole lot going on around the rest of the world, although I will be honest with you, I have spent some time outside today. I might be a little burned. I know my ears hurt. So we had a lot of sunshine and that garden was desperate for attention. So I was out there digging and shoveling and planting and watering and so forth and so on. And since I'm up on the side of a mountain here, up and high in elevation, there's a lot of rocks. You think you got a nice sweet space, you dig a hole, and no, you're pulling up a little small boulder or even a large boulder, or because this place was kind of a reno, someone else's sidewalk that comes out of the dirt as well because the plants, that's too long a process in one season to bust on through those kind of plants. So let's kind of start on over at Twitter and kind of get going. We've been watching Cape Canaveral and SpaceX, and they did a test run of their Starship SN4, and yeah, kind of a rough day down there. That was a catastrophic explosion as an unknown event occurred at the bottom of the vehicle. They were just doing a pressurization, but you kind of have to do this with fuel, and so it went badly, and it's kind of a shock to see that, but nonetheless, it was a test, and there will be secrets revealed from that. As we move out west and kind of return to weather for the moment, record heat, at least potential for today. We'll get, and in fact, the final observations are just coming in these time zones, so they'll be there for your local 10 o'clock news. Not that I'll be here to round those up, but they will be there. So probably about a dozen places, if not more. And then even on in for Saturday, the heat kind of slides north because we've got some moisture coming in from Southern California, and that's going to direct the heat into Idaho, to western Montana, eastern Oregon, and Washington State. So kind of hot up in that location. But then as you get to the coast, kind of wet. This is a dry location, and so they'll get a little rain while the interior portions of the northern Rockies going to have a little bake out for this last weekend of May, and then mountain showers and storms continuing through the spine of the Rockies. We've got numerous satellites in space. I mean, literally numerous for Full Disk Friday from NOAA satellites, their Twitter feed. We've scheduled our focus from Earth to the Sun on May 20. So this was a couple of days ago, better than a week ago. The SUVI instrument aboard now goes east captured its 1 millionth operational image of the Sun. And the Sun, if you'll notice, is very quiet. The new solar cycle, I believe it's number 25, is beginning as we have a sunspot way up to the north and another tiny one down to the south. If you go to spaceweather.com, Ben Livingston is there, and he keeps a nice update of what's going on at the Sun. And there was the largest explosion on the Sun that we have seen in weeks and weeks. And it's kind of curious that all of the instruments across the entire fleet, all of them, went silent 15 minutes before this event. So there was censorship of some kind, of the scientific variety, of what happened with the Sun today, or yeah, earlier today. And it's been hours since that data's come back on. All right, we saw the explosion right up here. We come down here and we can actually see that smoke plume on the radar as it blew up from the SpaceX launch site. And then there's the plume as that cloud of hot ionized gases begins to work down southbound along the Florida coastline. Another frog strangler, as Mike Seidel calls it, crushed parts of northern Atlanta Metro today where the Weather Channel is located. This is what a 2-inch rainfall looks like. So it came pouring down, and of course, the water running off and not overwhelming the gutters, as if they're not designed to handle the gutters there, then that's unfortunate. The second, actually, would be the third potentially named area, Invest 92L, is what the National Hurricane Center has called it. So we're watching that in operation just in the Bahamas. So we're going to watch that rather closely. The vortex is right in through there, and it does have the potential for developing as we move on through the weekend. Incredible thunderstorms flashing through the northeast last night and through the day. Lightning strikes are superimposed upon the visible satellite imagery. And these satellites are so amazing. It's amazing what's happened in the last 40 years with the satellites as we've seen them evolve, and the resolution and the frequency that they can update these pictures is truly, truly just amazing. And it's a thrill to be in this scientific field because weather touches all of us every single day. It's rare to go untouched by weather. And if you are, then you're inside, and that's unfortunate for you. As we've talked about over the last probably maybe not quite 10 days, the Central American gyrate, it's beginning to take formation. We've got Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, and then southern Mexico through here. So it's just on the other side of the isthmus of Central America. And this is going to grow rather large, and it will begin to progress somewhat north. So looking for some very, very heavy rains across Central America. And then we look at national high and low temperatures yesterday, 20 or 120 at Death Valley with 25 at Peter Sinks, Utah. Peter Sinks, Utah. There, now that they've got instrumentation in there, that's going to be kind of the big boy that takes that crown on a nation's lowest temperature. It used to be Stanley, Idaho, or West Yellowstone. This is the C-130 as they're prepping for hurricane season. They're built tough aircraft. They're old, and they just do their job right. The remnants of Tropical Storm Bertha dropped a little too much rain as it made its way inland through Spencer, West Virginia. Some flooding, hashtag flooding, if you want to find some additional images, is occurring today along the creeks, rivers. And just look how muddy that water is, too, as we've seen some of those creeks come out of their banks and really pushing the edges of what the rivers are capable of hauling. Ryan Mao, I really appreciate his contribution to hashtag weather on Twitter. Small area of low pressure. He's been watching this for about 3 days now. Off Yemen and Oman coast will drift overland and may continue to develop into a rare land food. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't heard of this. So the circulation is tight enough, and it's interesting. There could be not just a vapor aspect of this to keep it going, but there could be an electrical current that allows like dust devils out over sandy, pH rich areas to keep going. And we could see a land food. And I will be very curious over the weekend how this little feature begins to develop in the Middle East. One thing I'll miss about the quarantine is just how quiet everything is. I can't argue with that at all. Incredibly cool weather. Aloft will be moving across New England this weekend and into next week. If you go up at about 18,000 feet, which is the midway through the atmosphere, we can begin to see that those temperatures are in Celsius, more typical of March. So some cold weather still hanging on. I think he's got 3 pictures in here. So these would be forecast lows: Pennsylvania, New York, some 30s as you get into the upper parts of the Adirondacks and up towards the St. Lawrence Valley, and then even 30s in Maine. So that's just plain outright cold. That's about it. Here's his land foon, and we'll see if the models are on target or just completely in left field. And often they're just in left field. We let them evolve, and they'll correct themselves in time. Good to see everybody on in there. Vicky, Sasha, Risa on board, Amanda over there as well, as we kind of do a little Friday wrap up here. If you catch us early in the morning on Fridays, I'm with Vicky doing the coffee break show we'll share it onto my page if we get there. Vicky, I'm sorry, I can never remember that page. Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life. That's what it is. Go join that page and enjoy the party. All right, still hot in the lower Colorado River Valley, but elsewhere, the heat is kind of taking a break. Maybe Fort Myers, Florida, Venice Beach, the Venice area, 90 degrees, but elsewhere, it's not that hot. And even with all the sunshine in the middle plains, we've got a cold front that plunged its way through the southern plains, and that's what kept the thunderstorms. I'll scroll down a little bit, kind of raging on the lower end of the Rio Grande Valley. So Laredo, Brownsville, so forth. Really dealing with some rains as the monsoon is kind of pushing through Mexico and lighting up those areas. And then here's the cool weather along the coast, and then it'll be Idaho that's under the gun for the heat tomorrow, and occasional thunderstorms. I'm in southern Colorado, so I tend to catch this image now and again. And for the contrail watchers, they have been out west, but they haven't smeared out the skies to the point where I've really taken a notice. They've been around. The one thing I have seen is that there's a lot more small aircraft doing it versus the typical 747, 767, 7077. So I know they've got an additional fleet out there. And I saw a couple of very small Cessna Mustangs out there this morning, little tiny planes, just a little flight from Phoenix off to Omaha. But apparently they're loaded up with gear for that kind of work. All right, rains in the Northeast, even a few severe thunderstorms showing up in the Northeast as we look through Albany on up north of Montpelier and then on into Maine as this next round of cool weather presses through the Northeast. And then some other severe thunderstorms. This was just south of Denver a little bit earlier today. As we look forbidden, don't you hate it when they tell you it's just simply forbidden? And then that makes you want it even more. All right, national forecast. It's only severe weather has been off, or at least later on today, in the coastal plains of the Carolinas, and then up through the Mid Atlantic states as we move out the next couple of days. The cool weather remains in the east, but no real big floodings. Nothing too ridiculously out of character for what's this time of year. So if we want to look at, let's look at weather underground and refresh this thing just to see if they brought anything on board. Risa, yeah, you've been getting some good rain out there, haven't you? I believe you're in the far northern Texas Panhandle. It's kind of wide open country, and I wouldn't mind taking a look out in that direction. I like it because it's warm, it's a little bit windy, but the astronomer in me would probably really enjoy the dark skies that you've got there. Well, a third tropical system developed before Atlantic hurricane season officially starts. We could throw some dice, but I bet we'd end up with a yes. It'll be a minor event, but that would get us three named storms. And then here's the gyre, which will likely spin off a couple of tropical storms either. So we may end up with 4 or 5 storms in the month of June, which would put us well on our way through getting through the all 20 named storms. They're the 20 names we have allotted for the particular year. And the heat in the middle part of the nation, I didn't really want to go there, but then we'll be looking for SpaceX launch tomorrow, and I'm going to bet you dimes to dollars that that just does not happen. All right, off to the jet stream. And the more you look at these graphics day after day after day, you begin to kind of get familiar with them. The nuances begin to take form. And when I first started looking at weather maps, I was eighth grade, ninth grade, and I had a wonderful mentor. He kind of was one of the local television stations meteorologists, and when my mom would take us into town to go do errands because we lived in the middle of almost nowhere, she would drop me off at the station. She'd do her doctor's visits, whatever she needed to do, and then my mentor Ken Torrey would just kind of teach me what I needed to do, and I really enjoyed that mentorship. And so, by the time I got to high school and into college, there was not a lot left to be taught, and so you're kind of ready to go out into the field. But there's the cold. This deep trough kind of rages through the eastern states. So another cool down. We're not done. There might be some snow showers on those highest elevations. Contrast that with heat that'll be in the middle part of the nation, and then unsettled. In California, we've kind of got something called the June gloom, and I'm going to come back to this. And I'm going to if we look along the coast from San Diego through San Clemente on up towards Long Beach and Los Angeles, you begin to see that lower marine layer. It just hangs on the coast. Once you drive out of it, it's summer. But once you're in this and stay in this through the course of the day, when you expect the sun to break at 9:30, 10, 11 o'clock at the latest, and you enjoy your sunny day. But if this June gloom, because the cool air still comes in off that ocean, and with the heat in place here, we tend to draw in that cooler Pacific air. And so they end up with almost another season going on in California. So let's go to the precip forecast, and we'll wrap it up with this. And as I mentioned yesterday, we go kind of about a week out, 168 hours. It's northern portions of Western Canada that really are under the gun for some very, very heavy rains. And last summer, if you remember the fires that they were having in British Columbia, in Alberta, in Washington, in Oregon, and then eventually Northern California and Idaho and Montana, this summer is going to be a different beast. And if they keep this kind of action going, then that means they'll stay green through most of the summer. If we can stay green and not have the rains just shut off by the first week of June, but we keep with some showers, get some good rains going, keep the streams running high, that would really give those firefighters a nice break. Otherwise, the other big bullseye is south central Kansas, southeastern Kansas, just probably east of Wichita, and then Colorado. And I'm going to put my cursor right over there, and the models are forecasting 2, 3, potentially 4 inches worth of rain. So that could be kind of of hefty. And since the latter part of the winter was a little lean on precip, then not that might be that might be good as well. We run it all the way out to the end of the period, and it's just wet. So the only dry places are those places which typically are dry this time of year. All right, everybody, we're bumping up on 16 minutes. That's just about right for what I scheduled to do, and people hang around for 3 or 4, and that's just enough. And I gave you 16, and just because sometimes we like to have seconds. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. And next week, we're into the beginning of June. So a lot happens in the summer here in the States and around the world. And I promise to people look at Hawaii weather as well. So we'll get some maps set up so we can kind of glance at that as well. All right. Have a great weekend. Scott Stevens here, and keep looking up. And I come over here and it asks if I want to end the broadcast. And I say, okay.